Hi, I'm Andrés, and today we will be talking about civilian casualties and non-combatant immunity from a realist point of view. We are, as a race, no strangers to conflict. We, are, we have been exposed to conflict many times throughout our history, for many reasons, for ideological reasons, for economic reasons, for self-defense reasons. And in these conflicts, many casualties have stemmed. Unfortunately, a vast majority of them have been of civilians. Here as a table that talks about the death statistics of some of the biggest conflicts in history. And it comes to show that casualties of civilians are not really few, are plenty, and that in many cases, the civilian casualties outweigh totally the combatant ones. For instance, in the Second Sino-Japanese War, for every combatant that died, there were 6.25 civilian casualties. And this comes to show also that civilians are in constant danger in spite of the measures proposed, of the period of time, or even the region they are in. So at this point of the conversation, some questions arise. What is really a civilian? The concept of a civilian, or better said, an innocent, is quite vague. Non-combatant immunity refers to one must never attack the innocent. But what really conforms an innocent? One could say that one that doesn't contribute materially to the advancements of war. But what about those that provide supplies for those who fight in the war? And what about those that intend to contribute and if they have a chance, they will take it and therefore represent a threat? From a practical point of view, thinking that there are innocents is not viable. Following up that question, there is the question of why are there so many civilian casualties? Well, the civilian casualties usually come as a result of a concept that is denominated double effect. The double effect talks about that those deaths are a harm that states have to take in order to afford to achieve a greater good. When there is a conflict, civilians are constantly exposed to danger and to hazardous situations. Civilian deaths are unavoidable, and this is well known by all the parties involved in the war and states and states leaders, more specifically, think that it is a small price to pay for some deaths right now in order to save more people in the future by ending the war quickly. This brings the following question. Could these casualties be justified in any way or any matter? This could be explained through a ethical school of thought that is called consequentialism. Consequentialism talks about that actions are good or bad depending on the nature of its outcome. So this school of thought actually justifies the civilian casualties under the greater good perspective. There's this perspective in which states think that if they don't take a hard decision now, many more of the people will die in the future as a result. And that if they don't take hard decisions, their opponents, their adversaries, will take advantage of that to try to hurt them. This brings a moral dilemma and solves the last question, which is how does this concern to international ethics? This moral dilemma is especially relevant for international ethics. So how does this fit from the point of view of a realist? Well, realism fundamentally thinks that there is no right nor wrong, and there is no just war. For realists, What is right and what is just is defined by what preserves the state's security and interest. And there are two ways of seeing realism. The first of all is human nature realism. That implies that conflict is an inherent part of human nature, and that is part of us, that it runs through our veins. And that if anything tries to attempt against us, we will fight back. It actually implies that to not be attacked, we have to assert dominance, we have to show strength as persons. And it implies also that no one can be predicted, which implies that there can be no innocence because it would imply a prediction. The second way of seeing realism is structural realism. The structural realism talks about that the system, the international system, promotes a balance of power, and that for states to defend themselves from other states and from external threats overall, they have to make themselves strong and show that they are strong and that they can defend themselves from external threats. At this instance, moral lines blur, and it implies that states will do what it takes to survive, even if it implies invading another country. From this point of view, the non-combatant immunity seems to be against our nature, against our interest of security, because we cannot predict the actions of others, especially not of other states. And if we give the opportunity to other states to hurt us, they will, and they will exploit it. And that comes to show that realism and non-combatant immunity are completely opposed concepts. In terms of forecast, according to the professor Merzheimer, China has been growing quickly economically, and eventually China will try to turn that economic power into military power. And in order to assert dominance in Asia, they will try to invade uh, neighbor countries and show dominance, just like similarly to how the US showed dominance in the West. Surely this is not in the interest nor of the United States, of Russia, of Japan. And from a realist point of view, this is unavoidable. This is a conflict that has to happen to some extent. And my forecast is that independently of that it is criticized, immunity will keep on being violated, and that states will have to preserve themselves. And because of that, they will keep on doing what they have to. And truly, this will always be like this. And it will never change because when push comes to shove, for states to be morally aligned or misaligned, they first have to be independent. Before they can be free, there has to be an order, and they have to make sure that they are not in danger. And that is what realism is all about. Thank you for listening.